2 o'clock, Saturday afternoon. Route 1, the Maine coast. Yellow sun through the rear window of the Hadley Group town car. Holt Pemberton drove the CEO home from a 5-hour shareholder brunch. Camille Hadley slumped in the back seat, eyes closed, breath warm with wine, murmuring one word, "Mama." Her clutch slid from her lap to the carpet. A black and white photograph spilled onto the floor, sharp in the light. Red light. Holt reached down. He had seen that face every night for 10 years, and on the table beside Maggie's bed, his late wife's mother. Green light. He did not move. Holt pulled into the porte cochere of the Hadley Camden Harbor Inn just before 3. The valet stepped forward. Holt waved him off. He killed the engine and crossed to the passenger door himself. Before he opened it, he slid the photograph into the inside pocket of his coat. Camille was half awake. She did not protest when he lifted her elbow. The bellhop met them at the elevator with her room key. On the threshold of the suite, she said, without looking up, "Thank you, Pemberton." She had called him by his surname for 3 years. "Get some rest, ma'am," he said. He drove back to Camden by the inland route. He picked up Marlo from the babysitter at 4:30. She had a bandage on her thumb from a paper cut at school. He kissed the bandage. He made tomato soup and grilled cheese. He read her the chapter about the storm in the book she liked. She fell asleep before he reached the last page. After he closed her door, he stood in the hallway a long minute, listening to the house breathe. Then he went down to the basement workbench and took the wooden box off the shelf. He had not opened it in 11 months. Inside, beneath a folded scarf and a stack of letters, was the photograph. He laid it on the bench. He took the photograph from his coat and laid it next to the first. 2 prints. Same negative. Same dark stain in the upper right corner. Same young woman, perhaps 20, in a long coat, on a porch he did not recognize. He sat on the basement stool a long time. He did not call anyone. In a small black notebook he kept in his coat pocket, he wrote 3 words, "Hadley, not coincidence." Sunday morning, in the suite at Camden Harbor Inn, Camille came up slowly through layers of headache. The room was bright. Her clutch lay open on the marble side table. She reached for it without sitting up. She felt the lining. She felt the inner pocket. The photograph was gone. A memory floated up from the dark. A man's hand reaching down for something on a sunlit floor mat. Pemberton. She did not call him. She called Thea Kelso instead. Thea had been her family's lawyer since before Camille was born. The phone rang 4 times. "Camille." "Thea, I need to ask you something, and I need you to think before you answer." "Always. Did my mother ever have a child before she had me?" The silence on the line was long enough that Camille walked to the window and back. Long enough that she heard the hush of the surf at the foot of the in-lawn. "Camille," Thea said finally, "we need to meet." 6 weeks earlier, on a wet Tuesday, Camille had been alone in her mother's library, looking for a first edition Eleanor wanted shipped to a charity auction. The book was on a high shelf. When Camille pulled it down, a small photograph slipped out from between the pages. Black and white. No name, no date. She had carried it in her clutch ever since. She had not asked her mother who the young woman was. Some part of her had not wanted to know. Now she did. On Monday morning, Camille drove herself to Portland. She did not tell the office. She did not tell her mother. She met Thea in the small back conference room of the Kelso and Associates building, the one with the curtains always drawn. Thea did not open her briefcase. She did not produce anything. She poured 2 cups of black coffee and set one in front of Camille. "Before I say anything," Thea said, "you should know I have been waiting for this conversation for 32 years, not hoping for it. Waiting." Thea did not give her details. Only a beginning. "Yes. Your mother had a daughter before you. 1994 was the year. She was 19. The baby was a girl. She had named her Margaret on the form and prayed every year that the family had kept the name." Camille drove back to Boston that afternoon, at the legal limit, and not a mile faster. She did not call Pemberton. For the first time in 3 years, she requested a different driver from the pool. The dispatcher acknowledged the change in 2 minutes. He did not ask why. He was good at his job. That night, in her apartment on Beacon Hill, she opened her laptop and made a call she had never made in 3 years. Not to Human Resources. To Hadley Group, Internal Security. She asked for a full background trace on a current employee. Pemberton, Holt R., she specified, not the HR file, full history, federal records, court filings, press archives. The report arrived at 11:17 the next morning, hand-delivered by a courier in a Navy windbreaker. She read it standing up. Holt Robert Pemberton, born 1991, Portland, Maine. United States Naval Academy, class of 2013, 3 years active duty as a naval intelligence officer, then Georgetown Law, accelerated program, graduated 2018, hired into the Federal Bureau of Investigation that same year, assigned to the Boston Field Office, white-collar crime division, with a subspecialty in trust fund fraud and shell company networks. 2 prosecutions of note. The first, in 2020, dismantled a layered scheme moving family trust assets through Bermuda. The second, in 2021, exposed a New England family office that had quietly drained an elderly client's estate over 15 years. Both cases resulted in convictions. Both made the inside pages of the Wall Street Journal. Special Agent Pemberton resigned his commission in April of 2022. 8 months later, his wife, Margaret Crane Pemberton, age 28, of Camden, Maine, died of pancreatic cancer. He filed his application to drive for Hadley Group 6 weeks after the funeral. 3 years of perfect performance reviews. 3 declined offers to move up to fleet management. Camille set the report down on her kitchen counter. She did not sit. She walked once around the island. She walked once around it the other way. A former Federal Bureau of Investigation special agent specializing in trust fund fraud had been driving her car for 3 years. She had cried in the back of that car after a board meeting. She had taken a call from her mother in that car about her father's anniversary. She had read a private letter in that car. She had said things, on the phone, with him 3 feet from her. She poured herself a glass of water. Her hand was steady. The water in the glass was not. Outside her kitchen window, the lights of Boston Common burned in the dark. She picked up her phone. She put it back down. She did not call him yet. At 4:15 Tuesday morning, Camille left Boston. She drove herself. The drive to Camden took just under 3 hours by the inland route. She arrived before sunrise. She did not stop at the resort. She did not stop for coffee. She drove the dark coastal road through the sleeping town and turned onto the dirt lane that ran behind the wharf, and she found his house by the address in the file. It was a small wooden cottage with a porch and a clear view of the water. The sky was just beginning to gray. She did not knock. She sat in her car 2 minutes with the engine off. The kitchen light was already on. Through the window she could see a small girl, maybe 7, sitting at the kitchen table in a flannel nightgown, hair sleep-tousled, working with intense concentration on a piece of paper. The girl drew a line, lifted her pencil, and turned her head to consider the next line. Something about the corner of her mouth made Camille set her hand on the dashboard to steady herself. She got out. Holt opened the door before she reached the porch. He was already in a coat. "I figured you'd get here before 7, he said. They sat on the porch. Holt brought out coffee in 2 enamel cups. Marlo stayed at the kitchen table behind the window, working on her drawing. She had not looked up. Holt set a small frame on the bench between them. Maggie was smiling in the photo, holding up the same black and white print, laughing at something off camera. Camille looked at it a long time. What year was Maggie born? 1994. My mother was 19 in 1994. The wind off the water moved the bare branches of the maple in the yard. The kitchen light made a yellow rectangle on the porch boards. "I didn't know," Holt said, "that you were her sister. I drove you to and from work for 3 years. I didn't know." "When did you find out?" "Saturday afternoon." She turned her head and looked at him, properly, for what she would later realize was the first time. 3 years of professional distance, and she had never actually seen him. He was 40 pounds lighter than the photograph in his file from his bureau graduation. There was gray at his temples that should not have been there at 35. The wedding band was gone. It had left a paler line on the ring finger. She drew the photograph from her clutch and laid it on the bench. He drew the second one from his pocket and laid it next to hers. 2 prints. Same negative. Marlo appeared at the porch door, eyes round. "Daddy, there's a lady." "I see her, sweetheart. This is Miss Hadley. She came to talk about a friend." Marlo studied Camille with the unguarded directness of a 7-year-old. Are you the lady from the brunch? Camille felt the breath leave her chest. Daddy was telling me about a brunch yesterday. He said the lady fell asleep. Holt did not flinch. Marlowe, can you finish your map while Miss Hadley and I talk a few minutes? Okay, Daddy. The door closed. Camille looked at Holt. She knows your work. She knows I drive a lady to meetings. She does not know who. The sun came up over the eastern water and lit the photographs on the bench between them. Camille called her mother at 6:45. Come to Camden. Now, Camille. Today, Eleanor was on the road by 7:30. She arrived at the cottage at 11:02. She had brought no overnight bag. She had brought nothing but the leather purse she always carried. Holt opened the door. Marlowe stood beside him in a clean dress, the one with the small embroidered flowers on the collar. Holt had told her only that a guest was coming. He had not said which kind. Marlowe stepped forward. She offered her hand the way she had been taught. Hello, ma'am. I'm Marlowe. Eleanor took the small hand. Her own was shaking. Hello, Marlowe. I am a friend of your aunt's. Camille had not used the word aunt yet. She let it stand. Marlowe studied Eleanor for a polite 3 seconds. May I be excused upstairs, Daddy? I have a map to finish. Yes, sweetheart. Marlowe climbed the stairs without looking back. They sat in the living room. Holt brought out tea. Eleanor took the cup but did not drink. The teacup made a small rattle against the saucer. She put it down. Camille. Mother, you found the photograph in the library. The one in the book. 6 weeks ago, I knew you had. I went to put a different book back on the shelf, and the gap was on the wrong side. I knew. Why didn't you ask me about it? Because I knew what you would ask me back.